Silent Hill F has been released, and with it, a slew of questions. Primarily, why is it called a hill when we're on a mountain? Why silent when these kids are rather loud? And lastly, what exactly does the F stand for? Well, guess what? I doubt I will find the answers we seek, but I'm gonna try. Silent Hill F is the 20th-ish release in the Silent Hill franchise and follows Shimizu Hinako's journey into the Quiet Dunes. Set in the sleepy mountain town of Ebisugaoka during the 1960s, Hinako's life is turned upside down when a mysterious and all-consuming fog rolls in, causing twisted monstrosities to appear. Will she be able to brave the storm, or will she be consumed by the darkness within? Now, if that paraphrasing of the Steam page and Wikipedia article doesn't convince you, hopefully the rest of this video will, because Silent Hill F stands for Silent Hill is a fun game, but the is a game is silent. A quick disclaimer, this game does get pretty dark. It doesn't shy away from some serious topics or their depiction of them. Jane, if you could be so kind to place the same disclaimer on screen that the game gives, and to you watching, if any of those things bother you, well, don't worry, I get it, and I won't be bothered if you leave the video. I'll see you next time. For everyone still here, sit back, grab a drink, or don't, I'm not your mother, and enjoy Silent Hill F. Our story opens on a flashback of Hinako being told she can't play with the girls because she played with the boys, and then the introduction of her older sister. I find it suspicious that the camera never panned in a way to show Junko's face, but I'm sure it's fine. Next, we're shown that Hinako might not have such a great home life with her father yelling about why she can't be more like her older sister, and her mother not really doing anything to stop it. After Hinako leaves, the game can begin proper, and we're told to head down the mountain. A journal help keeps track of notes and lore. I won't really be mentioning it much, but I do want to point out again that Junko's face is not shown. Interesting. Very interesting. This sign can't stop me because I can't read. That's a lie. A double lie, actually. Not only can it stop me, it says Tachi Ita Kinchi, which means do not enter. As I casually walk down the mountain, I want to talk about the graphics. Not only are they good, great even, despite me playing on the balance setting, whatever that specifically means, but I mean the actual design. Now, I didn't grow up in 1960s Sleepy Mountain Japan, but I have worked in 2010s Sleepy Mountain Japan, and this is pretty much exactly what it looked like. Well, to be fair, there were more modern houses and, paved roads. But the older wooden houses with tools and bicycles outside, the overgrown foliage, the rice paddies, it gave me a strange feeling of nostalgia, which is weird because I grew up in the American Midwest. My point in mentioning it, I guess, is just that the design is really well put together. The world feels cohesive and connected. You run through fields and in between buildings with extremely narrow gaps or along river canals, and as you progress, different sections of the map open and close. So it's not like an open world, but it's also not completely linear either. Anyway, on my way into town, Hinako notes that there doesn't seem to be anybody around and thinks to check the general store as it's where her friends usually hang out. On our way up there, we meet Sakuko, who calls us a traitor for some reason, and we just kinda accept it? I mean, with a dejected look, but what? No time to ponder that, because at the store we run into Shu, our childhood friend that never really saw us as a girl. Now, why do I say it like that? Well, because the game makes sure to say it in basically every conversation there is. The journal even points it out, saying that the Showa-era kids look down on the opposite sex, but not Shu, good old Shu, a real believer in gender equality. You know what else Shu is? That's right, a drug dealer. I'm joking, but he does give us some medicine. Unfortunately, that will have to wait as more plot happens. Rinko, the fourth and final friend of the group, shows up and seems disappointed that we're with Shu. Huh, that's very interesting. And finally, Sakuko comes along and we get a heartwarming moment of friends bonding over some jokes before a mysterious fog rolls in and Sakuko develops acute plague. Symptoms include immediate death. Talk about a buzzkill. The remaining children are understandably scared and begin running away from what is called the fog monster. I mean, yeah, that's an accurate description, I guess. Hinako, separated from her friends, ends up trapped in a corner before Stepladder, our sister, disembodied voice, comes to the rescue. Thank God the fog monster can't climb, I guess. After this, we are dropped back into the world and hurt because game needs to teach us how to use healing items. The pills Shu gave us are for our headaches, but should take care of any injuries. To Hinako's credit, DARE was not established until 1983, so she never learned that we shouldn't take mysterious pills from our classmates. Shortly after being taught how to mend my wounds, a mannequin-wielding knife pops out of nowhere and tries to make my skin confetti. Fortunately, Hinako is rather quick on her feet, being able to dodge not once, but twice in a row. Without a weapon to defend myself, I hide out of line of sight, and the game even points out that it is crucial to be able to do this, that it can mean the difference between life and death. Spoiler, I ignore that, and the moment I get a weapon, I'm not trapped in here with the monsters, they're trapped in here with me. After evading the JCPenney reject, I break into someone's house and steal their stuff. But it seems I'm not welcome, so I jump from the back window and continue my search for Shu and Rinko. I then find a comb. That sounds random, but it's one of the objects that can be offered at shrines to increase my faith. Unfortunately, Lightning Spear isn't available here in Ebisugaoka, so instead I am given charms for my devotion. In this case, I got one that increases max stamina, which is probably helpful. Then suddenly I'm cornered by another knife-wielding overgrown Barbie, but this time, It's time to fight. Every weapon has a light and heavy attack. Light attacks combo but don't easily stagger, heavy attacks can stagger but are slow. There are also counterattacks and focus attacks, but those come a little bit later. One of the things I saw people worried about in this game is that it is a Souls-like in its combat. It's not. Like, not even close. Just because it has a light and heavy attack with some stamina management does not make it a Souls-like. That's like saying pasta and dirt taste the same because they are both made up of atoms. It doesn't make sense. You can hold up to 3 weapons at a time, and they do have durability, but that was only ever an issue in one part of the game, and it wasn't even the weapon's fault, it was my own stupidity. More on that later. We make it back to Sakuko, who has now become one with the cordyceps, so we give her a proper rest and are suddenly attacked. After that fight, Hinako passes out, and suddenly we are in Dark Spirit World Place and have to do a puzzle to get out. And that's kind of the whole gameplay loop of Silent Hill F. You'll do some semi-linear combat and exploration bit, then switch it up to a puzzle and usually combat section. It's not bad. I mean, I don't expect every game I play to reinvent the wheel. Okay, I mean, yeah, sure, the combat gets a tiny bit repetitive, but the puzzles I think are all pretty well designed and self-contained. Well, okay, the first one actually is a bit lackluster. 5 pedestals and 5 items, you just have to match the item to the pedestal. Once it's solved, the room is lit up, but surprise, Hinako is a gamer, so the light burns and slowly saps her sanity. When she makes it to the door, she calls out for help and a mysterious voice answers her. What does the fox say? So that is, Fox Guy. I don't really know his name. It might actually just be Foxman. Anyway, we follow him through some torii gates, which eventually leads to a shrine that gives us a dagger. That's pretty neat. My childhood religion just gave me the gift of eternal damnation for liking Metallica. There is a locked door ahead, but Fox Mask Man says he's prepared a key. Okay, sure, sounds good. Unfortunately, the door that has the key is also locked. Hey, Mr. Fox, could you prepare a key to get the key you prepared? Is that a no? I had to do it myself? Okay. Returning to the dagger shrine, the doll Hinako played with at the beginning of the game has a clue. It also came with a new enemy type. Dude who escaped from my dungeon. Fortunately, he isn't very tough. In fact, honestly, none of the enemies are that difficult. Granted, I'm not playing on hard mode, but hey. So the way this puzzle, and pretty much every puzzle works, is that you're given a little passage and it has clues to what you have to do. In this case, it is a phrase saying, lightning cast down from the heavens split asunder the decaying tree. From the earth grows Kudzu, the prophet of eternal prosperity. Now at first I honestly didn't understand what I was supposed to do, which should be apparent as I bet money Jane is currently showing footage of me flipping random Emma over in an attempt to brute force the puzzle. But then I noticed one particular Emma had a thunderbolt on it, and upon flipping it over, the game revealed I should be rewarded with a dopamine hit. But unfortunately my brain stopped producing that in 1969. At the second grouping I noticed a decaying tree, that's 2, and at the third and final group I found a charm, completely by accident, and the final clue, peace. Also honestly by accident because I didn't know what a kudzu was. Then I return to the locked door, spin some dials, open said door, and grab the jade key, but before leaving, there is a kinda creepy message from the doll. Don't trust the Foxman? Oh right, and like I'm gonna trust the Bride of Chucky instead? After running for my life, I turn the red lights off and Foxman says we can enter. However, when trying to close the door, I get headshot by some camping ghost and sent back to the real world. Shu is there? Yeah, I mean, he's showing concern like a friend would, at least for Hinako. He seems rather indifferent about the fact that he and Linko got separated. But together they decide that they should go find her. Shu suggests that maybe she went home. Like her actual home. Understandable, I guess, so they set off. On the way there, I get a little lost and end up at a shrine, which is fine, but Shu tells me that's not the way, and like, duh, Shu, I just wanted to pay respects to the dead considering that's the whole town at this point, and probably you if my knowledge of how every other horror game ever goes. The game tells me that getting grabbed by enemies is bad and there's no way to break out, basically meaning it's guaranteed damage. Sure would suck if the game had a habit of pulling from Doom 3's playbook and putting enemies around corners waiting for you to walk by. Fucking monster closets. Wait, no, that's not how I should word that. A little further up is a roadblock, I think. I didn't even check, I just immediately dropped down into this little yard area and I'm told I need a key to progress. Said key is literally 2 steps away, placed precariously on the edge of a well. Pyramid Head, man, you gotta lay off the cheeseburgers. Time for a new enemy, Big Sword McMurder. So here's the problem with the combat in this game. The enemies look like they should be pretty tough, right? I mean, look at that guy. He's the size of a bus with a sword that's literally as tall as my character. He goes down in 11 attacks. Again, difficulty isn't set to anal prolapse, but like, 11 light attacks? Really? Even the bosses that show up later in the game are pretty easy. In fact, in the whole game, only one enemy, the final boss, gave me any problems, and even that, it was more of a, this is my first time fighting the thing, so I suck at it, rather than it being difficult. I don't know. I mean, Hinako is a sporty girl. Game said she did track and field, so she probably has some athletic ability, but she's likely never been in a situation where she had to beat something to death, especially not something the size of a minivan, but she can do it in 11 swings? Really? Really? It does break immersion just a smidge, but I suppose the alternative of this one enemy took all 3 of my weapons at full durability is much worse, so I'll take it. Anyway, with the enemy probably only temporarily stopped, I attempt to fish the key out of the well. Surprise, he isn't dead. Had I not been looking right at him, the sudden intense music probably would have increased my heart rate slightly, but I mean, come on, that was so obvious. Well, anyway, I fish that key out, open the door, slip past some enemies, and out the window to safety. No, really, Shu, there are like 2 mannequins right on the other side of the window. We should probably go now. Shu and Hinako then share a moment reminiscing about the past, which is nice, I guess. Hinako remarks that it's weird to have good memories coming up at a time like this, which, like, A+ right there. The game doesn't suddenly forget it's a horror game to build lore. Anyway, once that's over, it's time for the only puzzle to give me trouble in the whole game because my IQ is on par with the scarecrow that tries to help me. So the idea is pretty simple, but I think I just overthought it. There is one scarecrow that will give you a hint, and then a bunch of immobile enemies. Pick the correct enemy and it will point you where to go next. Pick the wrong one and you get a surprise surgical incision. The first clue is, I'll put on a polite smile for now. This suggests I should find a scarecrow that's smiling, but the first half of the clue is, can you even imagine how I feel, which I thought was another hint. Turns out, this is just the first line on all the clues, but since this is the first one, I didn't know that. As such, I thought, oh, maybe it's actually like one with 2 faces, a smiling one on the outside and a pained one on the inside. There are some enemies with masks after all. Well, no, that's too much thinking, I guess. I was just supposed to find the smiling one. I fought like 6 of them before finding the correct mannequin. Upon removing the thorn, it points me off in some random direction and I follow. The second riddle is what it's like to be deceived by you for so long. I did mess this one up, but I had a random thought that the word deceived can also be changed to betrayed or traitor, and with less eloquent words, backstabber. Which is what the word uragiri mono literally means, backstab person, and this is the word Sakuko calls us at the beginning of the game. Anyway, there is one mannequin with a knife stuck in its back. Unsurprisingly, this is the correct one. The third riddle is he never once looked at me the way he looked at you, not once. Upon inspection, you can see that there are several pairings of mannequins looking at each other, with one exception. Picking the mannequin without a male counterpart leads us to the fourth riddle, which is you've always been such an eyesore. I took this literally, as a couple of the mannequins have problems with their eyes. That was wrong! This one is the right answer. I don't know why. Either way, we are appointed to the 5th and final riddle. You hurt me and even hurt him too. Do you know how it feels to force a smile when I'm staring at that disgusting face of yours? So it once again sounds like I'm looking for a mannequin that is smiling while looking at another. I'm pretty sure this is mimicking Rinko's feelings for Shu, so it should be 2 female mannequins, one smiling. However, it says hurt him and me too, so do I need to find 2 that are injured in some way, maybe a knife in the back? Unfortunately, while I was looking, a couple of them came alive randomly and I had to fight. At this point, I had made so many mistakes, all of my weapons had broken, so I quit out to hopefully load a checkpoint that didn't have that issue. I kinda wanted to restart the whole thing because now I knew what I had to do, but the checkpoint was just before this trial. But either way, I find the correct one on my very next try and the puzzle section is over. Conveniently, this drops us right in front of Rinko's house. Shu calls out to her and she is actually there. She's very happy to see Shu. Us, not so much. Listen, I get it, you like the guy, but look around you, now is not the time to go rom-com. Together we make a plan to get out of town and call for help, but Rinko says that's impossible, and upon looking out the window we can see that the bridge is destroyed. When I first saw this, I was mad. Why? Because that does not look like a very big bridge, but I can tell it's a perspective thing. The gap is wider than it appears, but at the same time, unless that water is like rapid piranha-infested lava water, you guys can totally swim across that. Whatever, the backup plan is to take the highway out behind the mountains. With that settled, Rinko and Hinako head to the kitchen to grab some supplies, but along the way, the doll from earlier warns not to trust our jealous friend. Yeah, right, like some doll is gonna... Okay, maybe we should listen to the doll. Waking up in the dark shrine, the objective is once again to follow the Foxman. This area is completely devoid of life, which sets up a nice atmosphere. You know what else has a nice atmosphere? My game! That's right, I made a game and it's called The Joy of Hand Washing. It's a cozy little clicker where you help Gary wash his hands, and it definitely doesn't have slightly sinister overtones. Nope! Anyway, if you could check out the Steam page and maybe wishlist it, I would be eternally grateful. I'll leave my link in the description below, but of course, please don't feel obligated to. Thank you everyone, I appreciate you all. Bumping into the doll once more, it says not to believe the fox and stay away from the western room, so obviously I head straight there. Inside are a couple of paintings and the Inari statue used to move the bookshelf. This time around, there wasn't really a puzzle, just a standard key hunt. Oh, and of course, a naginata. Well, this is way better than a dull dagger. Another key is needed to open the main door, but that can be found by the library. As we are passing through, however, we hear a voice cry out, and it sounds like Sakuko. But she's dead, so I don't know who that is. Pressing on, I find the stone orb, which is the key I need, as well as this thing. It's not terribly strong, so I decided to stay and fight, which wasn't a great decision considering my sanity is constantly being drained. Originally, I actually was going to fight all the way back, but I didn't have enough sanity restoring items, so I decided to just run. Which in turn leads us to this game's first boss fight. As it is the first of the bosses, it isn't terribly hard. Every boss seems to have some sort of gimmick, and this one is teleporting away to do some big attack. But one whack from my spear is enough to knock the boss out of it. As long as you're listening to where the chime comes from, it's pretty easy to find her and the phase is a non-issue. After just a couple dozen pokes, the boss enrages and nearly takes Hinako out, only for Mr. Foxman to show up and save the day. He's also able to banish it to the Shadow Realm, or whatever the Shadow Realm version of the Shadow Realm we're already in is, but I don't understand. Why does he have that power? Why did he use it now? Find out next time on Silent Hill Z. Anyway, through the gates, Mr. Fox says we must be cleansed before continuing. Yep, that's gonna clean me out. Bit late for that warning, don't you think? Back in the waking world, Hinako is, very noticeably not concerned with the fact we just dolphin dive from the top of the steps, and together we set out. On the way there is some more exposition, and Hinako really doesn't seem to like that Shu and Hinako are friends. Like, really doesn't like it. She berates the way Hinako speaks, and is just overall pretty shitty to her. But anyway, it seems the main road has been overrun by monsters, but we can just cut through the middle school. This section is honestly pretty uneventful, it's just making your way through the town with a couple of world-building word dumps from time to time. Specifically, I will draw attention to this one. Well, that's news to me. Shu completely ignores Hinako saying this and instead turns to the alive ? Hinako saying it's only a bit further. Alrighty then. Surprise though, the gate is locked, but the key is probably somewhere in the middle school. Makes sense. Shu and Hinako rest, and it's up to Hinako to find the key. My guess is that it will be inside a key box in a teacher's room because that's how every school in Japan is. Unfortunately, the key box is locked. I did learn, however, that the vice principal is so paranoid about losing the keys, he takes them with him everywhere and that he is very proud of his prized garden. How much you want to bet the keys are by some flowers? Outside, I investigate this little shed and I want to point something out. See this enemy? How it's just standing there? When I leave, it's gone. This is how you do good horror. It made me second guess if I had actually really seen the thing. Anyway, sure enough, the main building's second floor keys are by these flowers. Using them, I can access the second floor of the main building, shocker I know, and I can then get locked into this room. To get out, I must solve a puzzle box. The first level is pretty easy. The clue talks about sweet and tart fruit on a cake. So, by revealing everything fruit and cake related, I guess, the box opens. This gives a letter from Hinako that states, and I quote, "Are you over Hinako now? I apologize if I sound blunt, but I want to make it clear. That girl is dead." Jesus, what did Hinako ever do to you? Level 2 of the puzzle is also pretty easy. The clue is about journaling and writing down your emotions, so anything paper related. The final clue is about spring and the cherry blossoms blooming. This one took a bit longer because there were multiple tree-like items and I wasn't sure which one it exactly meant. But eventually I was able to crack the code, revealing the confession as well as the key out of the room for some reason. Our sister is suddenly there to give us some loving advice? Also by there, I mean totally not there. Anyway, I used this key to open a door down the hall and grab another key with a note saying the keybox key was found by a student who probably left it in her locker. There's actually a couple more keys for keys here, but I'm going to stop mentioning it. Instead, the main puzzle is to figure out the locker combinations. Basically, there's a code where every letter translates to a number. It's leet speak. You don't even really have to think, as the three necessary letters, B, U, and S, are all provided in different notes, so it's just a matter of lining them up. With that, we return to Shu and Hinako with the news and it's time to move on. However, Shu suggests we take a rest. Hinako, ever so happy to be alone with Shu, eagerly agrees and I guess it's nap time. Back in the dream, Foxman says he will make the arrangements for something and that I should bid my farewells. Am I going somewhere? There are two sections to this area. The first I explored seems to be centered around Sakuko. While exploring, the rooms and notes become more and more unhinged, but I'm able to glean that Sakuko has a terrible fear of being alone. The puzzle here involves rotating some statues. The clue talks about facing one another, but simply making them face each other doesn't work. It also mentions light and dark. I'm not 100% sure what the intent of the clue was, as I spun the fox statues to face left and the rabbits right, and this seemed to be the correct answer, revealing the lampshades, which can then be used to cover the lanterns and unlock the key. Sakuko is also in the cage behind this, and I thought Hinako was gonna be like, you know, "Oh no, don't worry, I'll get you out, friend." She just fucking leaves. She ignores Sakuko's pleas for help and just leaves her locked in the darkness. I'm sure the other pathway is more cheerful, right? No, it has Hinako over lava. I don't like where this is going. This side doesn't have a puzzle, instead you just have to find some objects. It sounds easy, and that's because it is, but I also hate it. I waited until now to mention it, but a lot of the items that can be picked up are very hard to see, both key items and regular ones. As such, pretty much any time I enter a new room, instead of looking at the whole thing, I just hug the wall and walk around waiting to see if the prompt to pick something up appears. I hate it because the game is so lovingly crafted with really important details, but instead I'm just looking for a stupid dot to show up on my screen. Anyway, in the different rooms are items that can be interacted with, which sometimes reveal one of the crests we're searching for. Once all three are located, we can return to Rinko, insert them into the machine, and bid farewell to our friend. Returning to the main door we can pass through, where now suddenly Shu calls out to us. Shu, I got some bad news for you, my guy. The final puzzle, if you can call it that, is to find two of Shu's missing prized possessions. It isn't a difficult thing to do, they are both at the end of their respective corridors just waiting to be taken. However, for the second one, we are treated to a fight with this? If it was half as dangerous as it is disgusting, I might be in trouble, but all it really does is slowly lumber around the room, occasionally spitting poison and shitting out eggs that spawn monsters. It's a pretty easy fight, and after grabbing the second possession and placing it back on the pedestal, the door opens, revealing Shu. He assures us that whatever the outcome, he respects our decisions. Listen, I'm kinda glossing over it, but there are a lot of weird conflicting facts. Things as blatant as Hinako being alive or not, but also Shu's possessions, for example, seem to point to him hating her, but the real world Shu doesn't? I mean, inner turmoil, sure, I'm not gonna claim to know what's going on because that would be a lie, but Hinako throws a lever releasing Shu from his arm shackles and, well, so Foxman consoles us saying it must have been hard to say goodbye, and Hinako's response was that it had to be done. Listen, when I say goodbye, it's usually a wave and a see you later. I don't drop my friends in the lava pits or leave them to rot in cells, so... At this point, though, Hinako wakes up, and it seems Rinko and Shu have left her, but no time to think about that, the fog monster is back. It manages to land a haymaker, but then a tree mysteriously falls in the forest, and that stops it? But like, can't it go around? Whatever, up the hill is a locked gate, and okay, no, seriously, can't I go around that or climb over it or something? I mean, when I was that young, I definitely jumped a lot of fences. Whatever, a note says the key is in a nearby shed. Alright, fine, I'll go get it. And I do just that, and without any issue, but surprise, the fog monster is back. This time, there are no falling trees to save me, so I book it back to the locked gate. Be glad you aren't a side character, Hinako. If you were, you 100% would have dropped those keys and it would have been your demise. Well, I make that joke, but she does trip. Thankfully, the spirit isn't able to pass through torii gates. Again, just walk you know what? No, probably better not to push it. A bit further up the mountain, I find a divine tree, which seems pretty important. Also, a note about a sacred sword, but there's nothing here? I mean, I know subvert expectations, but come on! Anyway, over at Shu's place, the front door is locked. Shocker. But the key is in the shed. Also shocker. Also, a note. Apparently, Shu attempted to figure out why Hinako has headaches, and it seems she became reliant on over-the-counter medicine, so Shu ended up switching her to some traditional medicine that uses kudzu root. I guess he made the medicine himself? Somewhere along the lines, it is learned that he is very knowledgeable about plants, but that's still a no for me, dog. Anyway, we enter the house, look at a photo, hear a noise outside, and learn the monster can walk around gates. It throws Hinako around and knocks her out. Then I guess it just fucks off. Hand in hand with Foxman, he says there are 3 rituals ahead with great pain, and the doll tells us to run, so naturally we ignore it and press on. This section is a maze with enemies, though I use that term loosely. It's a bunch of rooms that are put together, some with missing walls and some with locked doors. Thanks to the detailed map, however, it's not at all hard to navigate. So, while I do that, I'd like to take a moment to say if you're enjoying the video, don't forget to subscribe. It really does help the channel out, and it lets me know you guys are interested in this kind of content. So again, I say thank you everybody, and I appreciate you all. Before long, we're sitting with Mr. Fox Mask at some kind of shrine, and the maidens bring out... an arm? Okay, listen, I did good in biology class, but I'm a bit rusty. Why are you pouring that liquid on my arm, and why does it smell faintly of ethanol? Oh, I don't like where this is going. The shrine maidens then give Hinako a saw, and she has to cut off her own arm. It's not a particularly graphic scene, but the game does do a good job of building the tension. Afterwards, the maidens suture the previous arm, which is apparently a fox arm, on, and I'm no doctor, but I don't think that's how that would work. Okay, I guess I'm the cleric beast now. So this arm just replaces our Dream World melee weapons and is super strong, allowing the opening of the heavy metal doors, which in turn makes the maze even easier. I'm gonna fast forward a bit here because it really is just run to 3 rooms, get grotesque, and get a new power. Do you remember being a kid and your parents' car had that really neat little thing that if you pushed it in, it got hot and then you touched it because that's what dumb kids do? Yeah, that times a million is the second ritual. This one gives the ability to Hulk out, increasing damage, and the ability to open doors with the same seal that's on her back. The third and final ritual sees us reenact that infamous scene from Dead Space 2. Well, not exactly. As far as I can tell, the eyes remain unharmed. It's the, skin around the eyes. Listen, I don't really know how much of this I can show or talk about before YouTube throws me into the bin. Like I said, they aren't super graphic and done rather well with the tension building up, but Hinako is a high schooler. A literal child. And YouTube is 100% about protecting the kids, right? I mean, just ignore that questionable ad you have on the side of your screen right now. Anyway, this ritual allows us to see that certain walls are actually an illusion. Also, I want to note, after the rituals, Hinako would say increasingly alarming things. Things like, "I will show you that I am worthy of the gift you've given me," and "I'm now yours, body and soul." And after the third ritual, the fox mask calls us his and said the others await. He says they're celebrating us. Us? Celebration? Wait a minute, I've seen this before. This looks suspiciously like, "Oh, hi there, doll, thanks for the ominous writing." Whoa, okay, guess it's time for a boss fight. No time to think about whatever I was thinking about. This one is easier than the first? Harder? I'm not sure. I got hit by way more stuff in the first boss fight, but like, none of it was particularly dangerous. There are some enemies in the room that, if lit on fire, will charge at you, but they don't deal a lot of damage and are easy to avoid. I did enjoy the kind of like raid boss feeling with the exploding ground lava geysers, but the combat really doesn't lend itself to interesting encounters mechanically. Anyway, the boss dies after just a couple minutes, and there is probably some super important lore stuff, kind of like how Hinako states the boss is Rinko, and yeah, listen, I have the IQ of a common housefly, so I'm gonna need whatever the Vadi version of Silent Hill experts in here to tell me what's going on. Hinako then wakes up in the real world and answers the phone and chooses house. It's Mom! She says it's time to come home. Also, Junko is there and we finally get to see her face. That is not what I expected. Also, I don't know what kind of mask that is. It doesn't appear to be a fox. It looks more like a bird, which is probably really important. She tells us we must make a decision, then disappears into the wind. The run back to the Shimizu residence is pretty uneventful, and once we arrive, it's time for the next puzzle section. The house has twisted and extended. Hinako remarks about not having certain rooms, and let me tell you, in this economy, even if it's an evil entity, I will not look extra square footage being tacked on. That's just raising the property value. Thank you, weird evil ghost people. Okay, so there are a lot of things to do here. First, there is a functioning propane tank, but no tube. Okay, so need tube. Then a room full of paintings that can be flipped upside down with one central one that seems important, also one, a missing calendar, and 2 doors that have crest puzzles. At first, this was a bit overwhelming. It's like 4 puzzles in one, but it's actually much more linear than that. There isn't even anything to do here right now. The calendar is by the ominous red door, and when returned to the wall allows access to the same house, but creepier. Oh, I got it. This is one of those same place but different items puzzles. Okay. Also, holy crap, this bath is huge. Shimizu family living in luxury. In Inception Layer 2, we get a flashback to Hinako standing up to her dad to protect her mom, but her mom wanted to protect her in her own way. Anyway, the calendar is in this room, but I'm not done here yet. In a back room, there is a scale puzzle, and there actually is a note on how to solve this. Like it says, "I am all alone, but I share with blah 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 blah." I just paid attention to how much the scales moved and was able to solve it without even looking at the note. It awards a crest that has some scales and an enemy. In another room is the framed picture of Hinako, which should take care of the picture puzzle from the first layer. In Layer 3, I find Hinako's journal, and it has a lump of wax that has something lodged inside of it, as well as the propane tube, a locked door with a bird pattern, and whatever this thing is. Back in Layer 1, I can use the propane tube to start a fire, then melt the wax, which reveals the fletching key, which is clearly meant to be used on the bird door. Before that though, I place the painting on the wall. This is the only one with a red mark on the main picture, so I flip it over, which causes the family portrait to fall on the ground, revealing another crest. Back in Layer 3, I enter the bird door, which gives a little more backstory, and it seems dear old dad went into some massive debt, which I guess led to the family having all sorts of problems. After though, the fourth and final crest is given, meaning it's back to Layer 1 to solve the door puzzle. I once again overthought this entire thing. It begins with the sword and fox fought, battling upon a set of scales. Well, there is a fox and sword tile and a scales tile, but no way to stack all 3 of them. It continues with the heavens themselves shuddered at the ferocity of their struggle. Okay, that means the heaven tile goes somewhere too. Day after day, the sun rose behind the fox's back and sets behind the swords, yet their fight knew no end. Well, that sounds like the sword and fox are on either side of the sun? There is no sun though, so the heavens, I guess? And lastly, the scales upon which they fought, however, were no more, having been destroyed long ago. Flip the scales over, got it. Really, the only part that tripped me up is the first line about both of them battling upon the scales, which I incorrectly thought literally meant on top of. In Hinako's room, Hinako can have a nice conversation with Hinako. I say nice, but it's not nice. It's also extremely confusing. I'm sure it's meant to be her and not her warring over who is real and, 2 halves of the same coin or something like that, but the whole thing that drives me crazy is that Hinako, this Hinako, says, "Why do you play dumb like you don't know what's going on? Lady, I am genuinely stupid and have no fucking clue what is going on. Please explain it to me." As you'd expect, she doesn't, and goes on to say how she's going to kill us, our family, friends, everyone in town, so, yeah, that's not good. Anyway, our room had the crest to go through the red door. Alright, that was totally fair. This hallway is just one of those pre-boss fight hallways. You can tell by the save station and items laying around, but what I didn't expect was this room with our friends. Yep, they are, very dead. You know, it's weird. There's a very obvious dark joke here that I'm not making, but if this were like Dark Souls, for example, and it was my character, I would have absolutely said it. Well, anyway, pushing forward is dear old mom and dad having a celebration. Unfortunately, they end up turning into monsters, but don't worry, in this household, we don't let the grotesque mutation of family members becoming bloodthirsty monsters stop the festivities. So, it's a duo fight. Dad turned into one of those big belly drum buster sword having monsters, and mom turned into something new. She can throw knives, so I thought it would be best to take her out first, but Dad kept getting in the way, so I ended up switching targets halfway through. Beating him up sufficiently just abruptly ends the fight, and both parents leave? We follow outside where they have returned to their normal human selves and are immediately murdered by a monster. Hinako then passes out, glad the monster doesn't want to kill us, I guess. We awaken in the spirit world, the Foxman offering us a drink, saying it'll help. After drinking it, he takes a sip too. The two of them talk and drink a little more, specifically they each drink 3 times from progressively larger and larger bowls. Hinako asks what it was and the Foxman replies that it is, and I quote, a filtered mixture of rice and water offered to ancestral spirits. If you haven't pieced it together, this is a wedding ceremony. Like, the whole thing. Don't worry, I only noticed some of the clues while playing. For example, it didn't even occur to me about the drink they were currently sharing until script writing, but yeah. To be fair, if you read the notes strewn about, the language is a bit more direct. Things like, I will give myself to him, and the parallels between Hinako talking about her happiness and her mother and sister talking about it in relation to marriage. On the other hand, this game is convoluted as all hell, and this might just be some trap the scriptwriters and producers have put in and are now laughing at me for being bamboozled. The Foxman gives us a brooch that says it's proof we are now his. Yep, then we head down a hallway to the next puzzle area. This one is in 2 parts. First collect 3 crests, then arrange them correctly. The note says to follow the fox's gaze, but I'm stupid and looked at this room like, there are several foxes, do I just follow them all? But they're going in circles. No, what you're supposed to do is inspect them all, find the one with a sword stabbed into it, remove it, and that one will point you to the correct door. Going through an incorrect door just leads to a small side area where you have to fight a few enemies then return. Which is not to be confused with going through the correct door, which leads you to a small side area where you fight a few enemies, grab the crest piece, and then return. In the third room, Junko suddenly appears and wishes to speak with Hinako away from the Foxman. I think this has importance because she asked specifically, did we kill it yet? She even asks it twice. Hinako and myself are equally confused, and she says that if it remains alive after today, she will kill Hinako for his sake. Thanks sis, can always count on you. At any rate, that's all 3 crests. Now to solve the mural puzzle. The black bird wishes to take the white bird wishes to resist. The fox brings along his followers in triumph. He notices not the 2 birds in conflict. Not gonna lie, this was one of the easier puzzles in the game. In the next room, Foxman gives us a box specifically saying this is yours. He has one too, and it contains rings. However, the ring doesn't fit the statue, so they have to be exchanged. At this point, Hinako wakes up and she is very angry at the fog monster for taking everything from her, so she chases it down the mountain. This section is just pure combat, or not if you run by everything. Upon reaching the general store, Hinako confronts the monster that has one big fox arm and is wearing a shiromuku, which is a traditional Japanese wedding attire. Am I the bad guy? Hinako tries to fight back, but obviously is no match. Junko then shows up and instructs it to kill us. Back in the dream, Foxman and Hinako make one more offering and suddenly the cordyceps take over, but from them bloom a beautiful bride. Yeah, I still have no fucking clue what's going on. Real Hinako, disappears and monster Hinako goes to say farewell to her family. But suddenly Dream Hinako is in the real world and the doll is here too, telling us not to go that way, but I don't really have a choice. We rush to the Shimizu residence where the family bids farewell to their newly wedded daughter. Real Hinako, I think, wakes up in the dream world. I think, and the doll says to help Hinako, and this game is a trip, okay? We run through the dark world all the way from beginning to end where Junko is surprised to see us. She's also surprised at the pills we've been taking the entire game, demanding that we stop. However, Hinako tells her to let her go, and she does. She just freezes. That interaction was probably significant in a subtle way. Hinako then smashes the altar and Monster Hinako Bride shows up and it's time for the final showdown. Like I said long ago, this fight is the only one in the whole game to give me any real issues. I could just not get the timing of her attacks down. I did die once, but that's okay, the game gives you at least one for free. I wouldn't necessarily call it hard because it's not, it's just the boss has a lot of health. Anyway, once she's dead, it's time to escape from the Dark Shrine. We run through the dream world and the real world, it kind of flashes back and forth, and there are red capsules everywhere, and I mean that literally. Which, probably means they're very significant. Anyway, eventually we arrive at the final door, Hinako pushes it open, sees the bride monster, says, "Get out of our way!" And scene. I think I know what the F stands for. It's Silent Hill, what the fuck is going on? Wait, there are more endings? Hey everyone, welcome to the in-screen Patreon Battle Royale, where your favorite Patreons battle to the death. Which sounds way cooler than it actually is, because they're just cubes hitting each other with sticks. Anyway, thank you everybody for watching this week's video. It was a blast. I really enjoyed Silent Hill F. At the time of doing this in-screen bit, I have completed 4 of the 5 endings, and I still kind of have more questions than answers. I mean, a couple of the things I wondered about sort of got answered, but I'm hopeful that the final ending that I'm missing will actually shed some light on Silent Hill, what the fuck is going on. But it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I don't often have time to play games for myself, so this was a nice little change of pace, and I might do more stuff like this. And oh look, we've got a winner. Unreproachable name, congratulations, you are this week's grand champion.